G'day everyone, Phillip Bigg from Shooters Union Australia. I am the Tasmanian president, and with me I have Steve from Hunters4Hope. How are you going, Steve?
Good, mate, good. Thank you for the invitation.
No, I'm very grateful for you to be here. As a lot of people know in Tasmania, deer have become a very big issue, especially in the media, thanks to other organisations. And I really love what you guys do over there. So I felt the need to kind of reach out to you and, talk about what New Zealand does, but what I think we should be doing here. So to start with, I really would like everyone to understand what Hunters for Hope is and, a little bit about yourself and how you kind of started Hunters for Hope and what it is that keeps you going and what you want to see happen in the future.
Right. So Hunters for Hope, for those that don't know, is a charity in New Zealand. We're based in North Canterbury, so not far from Christchurch in the South Island. And what we basically do is collect surplus venison from hunters and pull it all together, and then we do a regular drop of venison mince. Once we've processed it into mince, we drop it into one particular charity close to us, and from there it gets distributed to approximately 35 to 40 other community groups in the Greater Canterbury district. So we've been going in our third year now. We sort of started off initially because Adam Kreisel, who's the other sort of founder of Hunters for Hope, we do a lot of hunting together, and we were finding that with our own hunting we had a lot of surplus venison, to the point that we'd given everything away that we could possibly give away to family and friends and shared it where we could, and we still had a chest freezer in my garage full of venison trim and no use for it. So initially what we were doing is we were paying the local butcher to process that, and we would then on-donate it at our cost to the local food banks and charity groups. And from that it sort of grew, and we had the idea that if we've got surplus venison from our own hunting, then other hunters will also have surplus from their hunting. So let's see if we can put that together and actually make everybody's small donations a larger amount and get that in to feed people that need it. So that's sort of the concept, starting Hunters for Hope and where we came from. So back at the beginning, we approached the organising committee of a large hunting competition over here. And I knew the committee members personally, and I asked them, I said, if we agree to receive deer from hunters at the competition, and we agree to skin them and bone them and process them into mince, and the local food bank agrees to accept the mince from us, are you happy for us to come to the hunting competition and see if hunters will donate their deer to us? So we did that in 2023, which is our first year. Nobody knew we were coming. People I think you saw a bit of it on the media in Australia, but over here, that particular hunting competition on that particular year got a lot of media coverage from hunting feral cats and the do-gooders not wanting that to happen. So we sort of started that year. We got 50 deer donated from the North Canterbury hunting competition. From that, we got approximately 900 kilograms of venison, both mince and a bit of backsteak, donated into the local Hope Community Trust, which is the organisation that we donate to. And from there, it's sort of grown. So as a result of that competition, we got approached by high fence commercial hunting operations wanting to donate the deer, the venison from their trophy deer. So it's grown from that and incorporated that. We've also got numerous chest freezers located around our local district. So if mum and dad hunters on the weekend go out and shoot a few deer, and they keep all the nicer cuts for themselves, and they've got surplus trim and meat that they don't need, they can drop that into one of our chest freezers, and we put that with our other venison, and once a month we do the drop of venison mince into Hope Trust. So 2023, the year that we started, our first year we did 2,100 kilos of venison, of donated venison in that year. So that was pretty cool. We thought we were kicking goals. We thought that was fantastic.
Absolutely.
So for a start, it was that was pretty cool. So that was our first year. Last year in 2024, so we did the hunting competition again, and we had 4 or 5 hunting operations on board. Sorry, 2024 we had 2 hunting operations on board. The North Canterbury hunting competition, we got just over 2,000 kilograms of venison from that competition alone. And then we ended 2024 with not quite 7,000 kilos of donated venison. So that was pretty cool. This year to date, we've currently got 9 hunting operations on board supplying us venison. We did the North Canterbury hunting competition again. So from that hunting competition, we got 3,099 kilos this year. We also did a North Canterbury kids hunt, which is exclusively junior hunters. So it's only school-age kids that have deer in these competitions. And we got 1,000 kilos of venison from donated deer exclusively from junior hunters, which was really cool. So we set a target this year of getting 12,500 kilograms of venison in donated, and we're going to hit our target. We're going to do it. 12,500 kilos is a bit of an ambiguous number for people that don't quite understand, but it's the average meal portion of protein is 125 grams. So for every kilogram, there's 8 servings. So 12.5 tonne is 100,000 meals. So that was our target for this year. And without sort of letting the cat out the bag too much, we're going to end up somewhere between 13 and 14,000 kilos for the year.
Absolutely unreal. I mean, that is just staggering amounts of meals and meat that you guys have recovered that otherwise would have been wasted. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I wanted to reach out to you and do this interview, because as we've seen in Tasmania, we have had aerial culling over the past few years, resulting in well and truly over 1,000 deer wasted on the ground, and just letting them rot. It's just sacrilegious almost. So you mentioned the junior hunters also. That's actually quite interesting. So what's the junior hunters program?
So it's not a program as such. The North Canterbury Kids Hunt is exclusively for kids. It's a fundraiser for a local school. So obviously those kids have to go out with a parent or guardian or a licensed firearms license holder, and go hunting and actually participate in the hunt. It's not just dad goes out with his mates and gets a couple of pegs and the kids enter them. It's one part of the stipulation is the kids have to be actively involved in the hunting and that sort of thing. So when Hunters for Hope started, one of the main drivers that we wanted to do, apart from feeding people and utilising venison that was going to be wasted, one of the main sort of things that really got behind us, but we wanted to do our best to encourage the next generation and have them understand that even if they're going out and having a bit of fun and going hunting with mum and dad, they can still feed their own family and help the less fortunate as well. So when we take the deer from the North Canterbury Kids Hunt, part of the deal is once we've sorted the deer out and made it into mince, when we deliver it to the Hope Trust, we get a representation of the kids that participated in the competition to come along and deliver it and carry the tubs of mince into the food bank. So it's really cool for them to actually get an understanding of this is actually happening. It's not just a story and I think it happens, but I don't know. So the local school that there's fundraisers for, it goes in their newsletter and they take photographs of the kids with the mince, and it's actually a pretty cool thing to be part of.
That's absolutely amazing. I didn't even know that was actually happening over there, and I think people realizing that that actually happens just brings a whole new level to what we're going to be talking about here. You know, we what you're doing there is essentially inviting a whole nother level of community spirit into the future generations, and incentivizing the young to be a part of community and understanding what community really is, and
Hang
showing
on.
them what you're doing. That's absolutely amazing, and hats off to everyone, and hats off to all those juniors out there getting involved. That is fantabulous, I guess you could say. Um, and I really enjoy hearing things that involve community. I think we're missing a lot of good things in community these days, especially when it comes to the hunting community. We're seeing so many issues around Australia, especially when it comes to hunters, just causing troubles for other hunters, and not really working together and teaming up, to achieve better outcomes for everyone involved. And what you're doing is just absolutely amazing. So I've got to congratulate you and Adam and everyone else involved. It's really amazing stuff.
Yeah, to be fair, it's a pretty cool thing to be part of. Like I've said it before when I've done interviews with other people and whatnot, and the old saying that it's bloody good for the top 2 inches, like it really is. We've had the pleasure of going along to community prepared meals that people come along to, and a gold coin donation, and our venison's been used to prepare those meals, and it's honestly it's really humbling, and it makes you feel incredibly lucky that you've got what you have and your family is healthy and all the rest of it. When you meet some of these people and you just shake your head and you go, how are you surviving?
Mm.
So it's actually like there's a few rules that sort of dictate what we can do and what we can't do, and one of them is that we can't get paid, and there can be no profit and things like that. But I know for Adam and myself, when we get to witness these sort of things, getting paid would ruin it.
Yeah.
It's actually a really to the personal satisfaction when you meet people that are either utilising or receiving a venison mince in food parcels that we've prepared, and they're emotional and they're thankful and they're genuinely thankful. It gives you the shivers. It's pretty humbling.
Yeah, look, in the past, when I've done interviews and podcasts, I've always tried to talk about stone soup, the old folk story. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but I think
No,
what you guys are doing, you're basically the cauldron in the stone soup here. Just for anyone listening and yourself, I'll explain the old story. Uh, Essentially, what it is three weary travelers come to this village, and they knock on doors because they're thirsty and hungry. So they're knocking on the doors and asking for anything that people can give, and everyone slams the doors in their faces. And eventually, these three weary travelers, find an old pot, and they start a fire, fill it up full of water, and they put a stone in it. Eventually, little girl comes along and sees these three travelers sitting there boiling water with a stone in it. And the little girl asks, "What are you doing?" And one of them says, "We're making stone soup." And she looks in there and she says, "Well, that's not much, is it?" So she goes, "Oh, I might be able to find some carrots to put in there. That might make it better." So off she goes and comes back, and they cut it up and put it in the pot. And, they're all sitting around it, the three weary travelers and the little girl. And then an elderly woman comes along and looks at the four of them sitting there and going, "What are you doing?" The little girl says, "We're making stone soup." She looks in the pot and sees a stone and some carrots. She says, "Well, that's not really going to do much, is it?" So off she goes and gets some potatoes. And this happens time and time again until essentially the whole village has contributed into this pot. And after it comes to the boil and everything's cooked, one of the weary travelers grabs a ladle and tastes it and says, "This has to be the best stone soup we've ever made." And the essence of the story is that when people come together, great things can be made.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's exactly what you're doing there. And it's absolutely amazing. And, you know, we don't have that in communities anymore. We've lost that caring, nurturing aspect of our lives. And, you know, this is really important why I want to talk to you, to get that out there, because it's more than just giving food to people. It's giving them something to hold hope with, you know, that people are still people, and you know, are willing to care enough to go out of their way and volunteer so much of their time and do these things. But as we know, in Tasmania, we can't do that. We don't have up-to-date game meat regulations where we can donate anything to food banks and charities, which is incredibly sad, because we've actually lost a few food banks and charities in the past few years. They just can't afford to keep doing it. And, you know, the government do incentivize some, but I don't think that they're doing enough here. That's why I really want people like yourself in these conversations that can do it, to talk about how you're doing it. Especially when we talked the other night and you said about how you're able to do it under regulations and legislation, compared to Tasmania, where at the moment we have a trial program for wild harvested meat to basically be a profiteering model, which is undermining deer farms, which are already under pressure. The deer farmers here, you know, chefs want select cuts, but they don't want the crap on the side, you know. So
Yeah.
all these little things are just causing a lot of issues in Tasmania. And I really would like the Tasmanian government to wake up and see this video and go, oh, that's Steve bloke from Hunters for Hope. But, you know, listening to him, he's doing such good things to the community. Maybe we should be looking at what we can do in Tasmania. And you know, I think the other aspect too is obviously the food, health and safety issues. So how about you just explain how you are able to do what you do from the legislative and regulations
Yeah.
framework, and the end result on how it gets delivered and transported.
Yeah. So get comfortable, because this is going to be it's a bit of an explanation.
Here we go.
Yeah. Realistically, I think the rules in New Zealand are actually pretty good, really. So there's a bit of legislation, and it's around what they call recreational catch, and includes home killed meat. So historically, up till I think 12 or 18 months ago, it was very limiting on what you could legally do with wild meat, and as far as sharing it with more than just your own personal family, or donating, which you weren't allowed to do legally, even though it was happening quite a bit. So the regulations got changed, and it was all primarily around the donation to registered food banks and marais, so in Maori groups, and how that looks. So basically, the rules over here say that we can donate home kill and recreational catch to recognised food banks and marais and charity groups. And there's two bits of legislation that allow us to do that. And the two rules that we have to abide by is, firstly, there can be no level of profit or trade. So there is an opportunity there that you could cover running costs as long as you're not making a profit.
Yep.
But as far as I'll give you this and you give me that, we can't do that. So that's one sort of rule in legislation. And the other thing is that all stages along the supply chain have to be aware that it's unregulated meat, and they are using it and eating it at their own risk. So what that does is it takes I presume it's a public liability sort of thing away from the New Zealand government, or that they've agreed to eat it at their own risk. which in all fairness, the venison that we get, we ask all the guys and girls that donate, if you wouldn't eat it, don't give it to us because we can't use it. So what we've sort of done with the venison that we've had donated to us is whenever we do a run of mince, so we take it out of the freezer and we put it in our chiller for 24, 48 hours, temper it down enough so that we can inspect the meat and we go through it. I'm actually a butcher by trade, and a couple of the guys, the volunteers, are also butchers as well. So we individually go through every single piece of meat, and if there's anything that shouldn't be in there, whether it be blood clots and bullet holes or a bit of bruising or heavy sinews, all that gets trimmed off. We run it through the mincer and we put it in our chiller trailer, and we deliver that into the Hope Community Trust, chilled in our trailer, for the other community groups to come and pick up from them. So, yeah, as far as legislation goes, it's pretty easy. Those two rules, from our point of view, negate all food safety legislation. Out the window. Don't exist.
So what caused those changes?
Well,
Do you know?
I don't know if it was us precisely, but I do know at probably 12 or 18 months ago when Hunters for Hope really started ramping up, and it was more than just a couple of guys donating bits and pieces here and there and got to be reasonable volumes, that there was a media release from NZ Food Safety through MPI, which is the Ministry of Primary Industry, and it explained it reviewed and explained what you're allowed to do with recreational catch and home kill. I'd like to think we had a bearing on that, but I don't know.
Absolutely. So it's interesting. In Australia, I know that Victoria and at the moment Tasmania are doing a bit of a, I guess you could say, study to understand if game meat is safe to eat, basically. Now, to me, if someone elsewhere has already concluded that it's pretty safe to eat, you just copy and paste that. You don't waste taxpayers' money to go, is it safe to eat? And not to mention that, you know, for how many thousands of years have we been eating game meat or scraps off the floor, and yet here we are still now. And I think one of the things too is that onus onto people to take responsibility for their own actions, and, you know, putting it onto them saying, this is an unregulated meat, eat at your own discretion. You know, it really takes away everything from all legislation, as you were saying. I really don't understand why it's so hard for everyone else to follow suit internationally and allow us to do more for the community when, you know, food insecurity worldwide is going up. We should be able to do more instead of leaving, you know, 1,500 odd deer to rot on the ground. It blows my mind. And then in Australia, as you might know too, that wallaby and roo is the most heavily regulated game meat, or meat in general, in Australia, which is just absolutely unreal. But being a butcher, you would know, and many of our listeners would know, that, you know, on mainland Australia, how hot it gets, and that food safety aspect is a concern. But this is why I'm really interested in Tasmania, because our temperate climates are very close, especially when it comes to that winter season with hunting, that you don't have to really worry about it getting too hot, and you can transport whole carcasses without any concern that you're going to start cooking them or have any anaerobic breakdown, I guess you could say.
One question from me though is, if you've got these organised culls, and it sounds similar to what they do over here at times, but a lot of the farmers will have deer culls on their properties. But what they'll have is they'll actually bring in a chiller truck, and it will be done by accredited hunters, and that meat will come off the hill in a certain time frame, get prepared as it needs to be according to whatever the regulations are, and it gets into a chiller truck within 2 hours. So if they were, the powers that be were worried about, oh, it's too hot, it'll go off. Get a tiller truck there. It's not that hard.
Yeah, yeah, and this is one of the issues we face, that people aren't coming together, and that's kind of why I mentioned Stone Soup. We need those people to come together and organise to be able to do better for our communities. But the other issue is too with the government doing the aerial culling. So their operating procedure, I think, is a minimum of 3 rounds in each deer to make sure it's dead, which is
That's a lot of
absolutely
damage to a fallow deer.
it's a lot of money spent on shells, let alone the time in the air with the helicopter and everything as well. I was actually in an interview last year after aerial culling where they had shot 760 odd deer in the World Heritage Area. Before I'd been on air, they had a spokesperson from the department talking about it, and the question was put to him about recovering the deer. And he said it's not fiscally responsible to do it. It's not economically viable at all. Conveniently, I actually seen one of the New Zealand choppers put up a photo that morning, and he had about 4 or 5 stags off this tiny little helicopter compared to the helicopters they use here, dragging them out of the bush, which I talked about on our local ABC radio and said, look, they're doing it in New Zealand. They're dragging them out. There's no reason why we can't do it. The government's already spending how many millions of dollars on food banks and charities. How about we reallocate some of that to get this awesome resource out of there and change the operating procedures, that if it's one shot and the deer's down, don't shoot it again. Don't waste the meat. 750 odd deer, I mean, that's a lot of meat. And it's a shame to just let it rot. But as you're saying with farm culls, we should absolutely have a government incentivized program where they can organise 3 or 4 chillers. There can be 2 up north, 2 in south, and if they're going to have a massive cull on a property, organise it with a department saying we want to borrow your chiller because we want to do this. What's wrong with that? I mean, the chillers aren't that expensive compared to what the government wastes their money on elsewhere. So we can absolutely do this. We just need to have the people come together and organise things in the right way. And what we don't need